Remember the juggling commercial that came out with Nike when Tiger was like kind of broke through, and it's got like that white background. He's on the grass, and most people don't realize this, but he starts lefty, right? He starts lefty. He juggles it, puts it in his right hand, then he clocks it. But he's hitting it with a wedge, and anyone that's juggled a golf ball and can hit it out of midair knows it's easy to do with a wedge. So one day we were like, "Hey T, could you do that with a wood?" And he was like, "I don't know. I've never tried." Like, which was typical of him being like, he definitely tried. Like, there wasn't anything he was going to do and show off that he hadn't done a million, like chip in 2005. But anyway, I digress. So he gets his driver out, the old 975D, and he takes the ball sitting on the ground and he chops down with the edge of the driver, and the ball rides the face and it pops up, hits the crown of the head twice. Boom, boom, hits the second one really high, loops it, and hits this monster drive that, because of the height and the way the face is oriented, is going to produce a huge hook. So it starts like 70 yards towards like the right edge of the range and like hooks like 70 yards across the range. And he hits it like 300, probably like 265 out of midair. And then he's like, "Yeah, it'll work." And he just looks at me. I just walk, you just walk away. Like when the mic's dropped, you don't want it to land on your feet. So you just like, that was a dumb question. I'll walk away. But I mean, Tiger was the best. T back in the day. People ask me all the time how good was Tiger at golf. I always say Tiger Woods is better at golf than I am at breathing, and breathing's pretty important.
At Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience 2026 PGA Tour season preview. We got some sleeper, bust, first-time winners. Who's going to be good? Who's going to be bad? Well, I'll ask my guest, Keith Stewart from readtheline.com. Keith will be joining me every Tuesday evening / Wednesday morning as the final word on that week's PGA tournament. We're going to have head-to-head bets, one and done, weather, live from inside the ropes. Because, Keith, you're going to the majority of these tournaments, although we will not see you in Hawaii next week.
You know what? Much like the tour, I think Hawaii is going to come off the schedule for Read the Line. But, Pat, it's great to be with you. We'll start out in California. We'll work our way through Florida. And then before you know it, it'll be Magnolia Lane. This is going to be awesome. Can't wait.
I have done a bunch of preview shows already. We've done underdog drafts to get people into the big scramble tournament. There's still spots available on that. We've done one and done previews. The race for the Mayo Cup at fantasygolfchampionships.com is more than half full now. The race is on to get your spot before it fills, because that happens by Tuesday of the week of the tournament, which is the Sony Open every single week. There's $1.2 million, Keith, in the prize pool. I need to get you big time into one and done this year.
I mean, I'm always into one and done. I put the first couple names in and then I'm done. But no, I'm just kidding. I love one and done contests. I think that the advent of that has really helped our community and our ecosystem in the industry and golf betting grow, because it really all started out. I mean, I'm a club professional by trade, and we were running pools around every major. And then that turned into like every big tournament, and people just wanted to always be picking names and playing every single week. And one and done is just so clean. It's so much fun. It's so easy to understand. I am 1000% always behind the one and dones.
I am giving away a free bonus entry to anyone who is in that tournament already at the 75% fill mark. So if you're not in and you want a chance at a free entry, I'd suggest that you hit the description and go get yourself in right now. All right? But Keith, what do you want to start with? I kind of want to start with Sony and how this might be the last year of the tournament. I mean, might is really italicized there, because this is probably the final year for the Sony Open, right?
Well, I mean, the planets are not aligned in a great way. Number one, we've heard all the rumors around the tour, and there's certain things that I could definitely add some validity to in the rumor mill. But the second thing is that this is the last contractual year as Sony as a sponsor of this event. So the idea that the Century kind of was able to kind of like walk off into the sunset, for sure. If you're a big fan of the Sony Open or Wailea, I'd set your DVRs, because it's going to be on, Shell's Wonderful World of Golf come a year from now. That's for sure.
That's sad, because I think it's the fourth longest running tournament on tour.
You know what? It's been around forever. And here's the thing. And a lot of people, there's always a lot of negative golf media. And that's why I love being over here with you in the golf betting sense, is that because we get to talk about really fun things: golf courses, agronomy, architecture, who's going to win, who's going to lose, head-to-head matchups, all that fun stuff, live betting. And what the tour is trying to build, there's been a ton of negative kind of energy around this super tour that they're talking about that's going to start at the Super Bowl and end before Labor Day and kind of avoid the football schedule, which I know you'd probably love.
I
But
do.
what's
I really do love that. That for my personal content purposes, that really slices the year up perfectly for me because weirdly, every single football content person is kind of easing up a little bit. You're into playoffs. Not me. I got double duty now for 5 weeks.
And here's the thing, Pat. I got good news for you. You're going to like the direction that they're going. There's no doubt about it. It's not going to start till I mean, WM Phoenix Open loves Super Bowl weekend. They love all the madness. And I think that that's a perfect way to kind of kick things off. And then they'll kind of run through Labor Day. But what's going to happen in our world is that the tours that get very little attention or the tour events that only get, basically attention from us and the degenerates and everybody else and our fans and viewers, they're really going to get amplified in all of this. Because at the end of the day, when they do design the super tour events, and let's say it's 120 players with a cut, and they get Rory and Scottie playing all the time, well, it's not always that much fun to bet with Scottie in the field. What is going to be left over that is going to allow people to promote themselves to these super tours, whether it's the DP World Tour or it's something like a Corn Ferry like tour on steroids? Those events are going to be absolutely sensational to wager on, and they're going to be so much fun. And then now all of a sudden, instead of having like one tour like the PGA Tour that we focus on all the time, we're going to have almost like 3 tours to have a lot of fun with. The names, like a preview show like this, there's guys coming in from the DP World Tour. There'll be guys coming in from the Corn Ferry, from this, kind of like secondary AAA tour. I mean, I think by the time we get midway through 2027, we're going to be really, really excited about the changes from a competitive and wagering standpoint.
So you think it's all but a done deal that starting next year, the schedule is going to look way different?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I like watching the Sony Open at 11 p.m. my time in Hawaii, and it looks warm and it's cold where I am. It warms me up. I feel the same way about the American Express. Although there is the double duty of the golf that goes on during this time of year for me, I do love watching these warm weather tournaments when I'm so frigidly cold.
Oh, I mean, you know where I live too, just outside New York City. I mean, there's nothing better than trade winds and Mark Rolfing's voice on the screen. It's like a rite of passage for growing up in golf. And guess what? It's just Hawaii is a heavy lift when it comes to cost. We're still going to have the Amexes and the Torrey Pineses and the John Deere Classics and all of those things. They're just going to be on that AAA minor league tour. And the bigger events are going to be at the bigger venues. And the tour really wants to use this opportunity to upgrade the platform of all the different levels of what we see. Because at the end of the day, the system they have in place in order to get superstars up to the elite level, believe it or not, it's working. Pat, when you look at the Michael Brennans and the Johnny Kiefers and the guys, these guys started out on PGA Tour Americas. Guys are starting out like Ludwig and, Jackson Coyven will be another guy, but like these guys are Neil Shipley, the PGA Tour U. These programs, as much as people try to tear them down, they are giving us really, really good young superstars. And we have to continue to build out a system with which promotes that level of play so we can get them up on the super tour. And then we can see the next level of superstars coming through in years and months to come.
Well, we're going to get to our potential future superstars a little bit later in the show. You can always hit the time code to jump around to the spot you want because we're going to be going through maybe 5 or so first-time winners that we think are going to win on the PGA Tour this year. I do want to talk briefly about the new fall schedule, though, because that was released just before us recording. Sanderson Farms, gone. So our best Valspar crossover, where you see a lot of co-leaderboards on the go, that is out. And the Pro Core is out. The wives of the PGA Tour, Keith, are going to be devastated that Napa is off the schedule.
And, contrary to the rumor, they didn't get rid of wine country because Scottie Scheffler hurt himself with a wine glass. It's just a sign of the times that we're evolving. We're moving on. And we're still going to get 8 events. We only had 7 last year. The Bay Current still sits there. But I kind of like that when they go down to Mexico at a time where it starts to get colder where you and I are, we are shown. I mean, I know you're focused on football, and that's a big deal and everything. But it's not a big deal to me. All right. I like going down to Mexico. That could be something that could be kind of a read the line retreat come fall time. And I'd be very excited about that. And I love myself a little RSM, a little low country barbecue at the end of the year. So I like the way it's packaged in and around Chicago and the President's Cup this year. It's going to be fun.
Look, if I can get good Wi-Fi down there, I'll bring my team down to the Mexico swing, as we're calling it now, and maybe do a viewer retreat there. We can go to both of the tournaments. One's in Vedanta, and the other one is in Cabo, as it's been for a while. But it starts off with a brand new tournament that's in North Carolina. Do you know anything about the cliffs at Walnut Cove?
They're spending a lot of money to get involved with the PGA Tour, and obviously so is North Carolina's tourism. That area of the country, the Cliffs itself is a wonderful resort, and it is, up and down, hillside, terrain changes. A lot of what we sometimes we don't really get to see on the PGA Tour unless we're going to someplace like the BMW went out to Denver a couple of years ago. I think people are going to really love the new event there, and the fact that it's tied into Charlotte, you're going to get it's easy to get to. It's going to be, it's going to promote a lot of fan activity there. And even in the fall, even with college football and everything else, I think that there's just a lot of activity there from a sports business and sports like fandom and consumerism point of view. I think it's a good place for them to kind of land right there.
So the Bitmore Championship of Asheville at the Cliffs is the first of the swing season. That'll be on September 14th. That is replacing the Pro Tour. Then it's the President's Cup, then Utah and Bay Current, which is in Japan. Then there's a bye week. Then we come back for the Caribbean side of everything. You get Bermuda, Vedanta, the Worldwide Technologies. That's at Tigers Course in Cabo. Then we have the brand new Good Championship, which is in Austin. I saw a lot of pushback about this when it was first announced. I think it's a great idea.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's probably the first time that the tour has figured out how to successfully partner with a YouTube entity. The idea that we're going to take YouTube personalities that are massively popular, like Grant, like Good, or any of them, Barstool, and then just invite them to the Tour Championship, have them play golf and put them on our platform means that anyone that follows them is just going to then transition to the PGA Tour's platform isn't really how it works. But all of a sudden, if it's the Good Championship, and Good really has some input in how the event is rolled out because they know their own consumers and their own fans, I think you're going to see and I'm not going to use the word disruptive or anything. I think you're going to see a very innovative style event there. And that's another venue, the Omni Resort right there, where they've hosted the PNC, which is the Professional National Championship. So the 20 guys that qualify from my fraternity that get into the PGA Championship, they've hosted that national finals there before. Great golf courses, a lot of terrain changes, a lot of creeks, a lot of trouble, a lot of trees. The types of golf courses in the fall that we want that promote volatility. It'll be right up your content alley for sure.
I like that. And then you have the RSM per usual closing out the season on November 16th. So I thought that was interesting, adding a tournament, 2 new ones, taking a few out that we're used to. So we've lost Sanderson Farms, Napa, and Shriners over the past 2 years. So no more Vegas, no more Napa, and no more, Jackson, Mississippi?
Yeah, oh yeah, Country Club at Jackson. Yep.
Too bad. What sort of innovations do you think that Good could do for something like this? Do you think that they'll let them play around with the formatting of a tournament? Because, a lot of the YouTube golf is scramble type stuff. Could this be a scramble tournament? Could it be, or will it just be regular 72 holes?
Oh, I definitely think it's going to be the standard format, but I think in and around the Pro-Am, I think in the coverage of it, I think that they may implement some of the things that have made YouTube golf so popular. I also think that it's going to kind of draw in, again, looking at the timing of it all, the height of college football season, as the NFL starts to ramp up towards their playoff campaign. It's difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say and be naive that it's going to, completely move the needle, but those guys are uber popular. And when they went out and raised money, they raised $45 million in series funding, like in a minute's time, Pat. And to those who know what that means, that it's kind of like a dude perfect type of phenomenon, but just in the vertical of golf. I think it's going to bring a lot of attention from media entities and from a coverage perspective. So we're going to start to see some different things. And, with all due respect to some of the Kurt Byram's and such of the world on the Golf Channel and Steve Sands, I think it would be neat to hear from some of those younger guys in the way that they look at the game, they analyze the game, and talk about the game. And let's be honest, I never want to listen to the CEO of AT&T at Pebble Beach on Sunday afternoon when we're coming down the stretch. These guys being authentic golf personalities and loving the game as much as they do to do it day in and day out, I think it will add a little bit to it. And it would be great to see those I mean, I travel out there all the time, and it's like bros, women in sundresses, and then my parents at every tour event. I would like those first two categories to increase a little bit. I think it'll make a lot more fun atmosphere, and I think it'll bring something different. And there's no better place to kind of beta test that than the fall.
The main thing that you wanted to speak on today was the volatility of the top 10 of the official world golf rankings. Now, I just released a column. It'll be up on betspertsgolf.com. It's in my free newsletter, which you can sub to down in the description. It might be up on Golf Digest, Yahoo, wherever you consume golf content. That article should be up there. It's 200 facts about the top 75 players in the world rankings. I put a lot of time into this one. It's a fun one. Ooh. People want to give that one a read. But you've always made the point that there's always turnover inside the top 10. Every single year. And it's not always from the people that we think that it is. So should we try to talk through who the fallers are going to be? Because I think there's some pretty obvious names, but maybe you have some different ideas on it.
I think that there's going to be some good yin and yang to this conversation, because we also have to talk about who are the people that are going to jump in. If we had this conversation a year ago, Bobby Mack, maybe, Ben Griffin and JJ Spawn certainly weren't going to be subject matter.
Correct. Yeah, we would not have gotten Ben Griffin and JJ Spawn.
No.
But doesn't that make them the two most obvious candidates to not be there next year?
Certainly. I mean, I'm not going to go down like a Kenny Kim like wormhole here and say that the marriage of Ben Griffin is going to be the demise. But let's be honest. Is the guy going to win 3 more times and position himself from way outside? I mean, if the guy didn't play in the Masters, you remember his tweet when he was 51st on the list, and I forget, somebody couldn't play, and he was like, "Hey, I'm happy to be number 50 here. I'm ready to go down to Magnolia Lane." We'll certainly get the quantity of starts out of Ben Griffin. Will we get the quality? He would be a candidate for me. The easy ones to pick on are JT because of his injury. He's not going to be there. He's going to fall out. Justin Rose, at his age, if he could keep it going in the major events and the signature events like he's done the last couple of years, but I feel like he's a good candidate to pop out of there. I think JJ Spawn will have some staying power. Here's a question for you. Do you think JJ Spawn or Russell Henley will have more staying power? Because I think Bobby Mack's going to have the most of those guys that are kind of questionable.
That's interesting.
JJ or Russell?
I think Henley is a better player. However, I think that Spawn, just based on his ascent, although when you start looking at Spawn's metrics, something like his approach play last year, how it was just markedly better than at any other point of his life, that maybe we see a downtick in that. That just seems like maybe it was a 1-year hot streak. Not to say he's going to be bad on approach play, but being elite on approach play. You could say the same thing about Seb Straka, who I believe was second on tour in approach to Scottie last year. That what if he's just 15th? Does he win any tournaments? Probably not, would be the answer to that. Although he has won enough now over the past few years that at least we treat him. I mean, he's number 11 in the world rankings right now, Seb Straka. And you could see him maintaining around there with a few good hot putting weeks. But Spawn just feels like he overachieved. And so did Henley, because we've seen Henley around for 15 years now. He's never been this good. That everything kind of broke his way a year ago. He's finished top 10 in each of the past 2 U.S. Opens and Open Championships. He won a signature event that if he just comes second in a few of those or 14th in a few of those, he's just not here anymore.
Kind of the 6-7 conversation on Russell is that maybe he's been building towards this. So what I don't like about Russell is his age, but yeah, you got it. But when you're talking about in 23, he had 13 top 20s. In 24, he had 7 top 10s. And then last year he had he had 10 top 10s, and he had a win in a signature event. So if he's scaling up, that's the type of trend we're looking for people that are maybe outside that are going to come in. The thing that gets me about JJ, and I see him a lot in the press room, is that I feel like he deals a lot with imposter syndrome. Like he still is not sure. When I saw him at the Ryder Cup, he was kind of like looking around, like eyes a little too wide open for me. And I'm like, buddy, you won the US Open. Like you could feel pretty good about being here versus like, I don't know, Morikawa or somebody else that like got picked. Like you earned this, you earned being here. and he's always been that level of ball striker. Between those two, the trend is your friend, I think, with Henley. I think he has a little more staying power, but don't be surprised if JJ sticks in the top 20. I think he feels pretty good about himself, and the longer he's there, the less I feel like he has to worry about whether or not he feels like he belongs.
Well, he does win the award for most voice not matching what the person looks like. So maybe that's part of the imposter syndrome, that he is actually just a different person on the inside. Where he's like, "Hi, I'm JJ Spawn. I ended up winning." Well, he looks like this like brute force of a man. He has like Mike Tyson voice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's got the Tyson dialect going. All right, so guys that'll jump in though, right? We got a good list here of people. I mean, you talk about movement, right? I mean, Patrick Cantlay hasn't been on. Oh, sorry.
My question for you is, now that Liv gets world ranking points, do we have to reserve a spot for someone like, if Neiman was getting world rankings points over the past 2 years, he'd be like number 3 in the world rankings.
Ooh. I don't.
Yeah.
Right, first of all, if we're talking about
I'm not even throwing you a curveball. I'm throwing a straight knuckleball at you here.
Yeah. I mean, we're playing. This is like dirty backyard wiffle ball right now. And I got to protect the lawn chair. So here's the thing. I don't think that the official world golf ranking points are going to happen soon enough that those guys will be able to climb into the top 10. And I'm not sure that, like, they'll have to have like a Neiman style season or a Rahm style season where they like top 5 in every single event in order to accumulate that many and have a good major championship season by the time they do get official world golf ranking points. I mean, stranger things have happened, but man, I'm all over pop culture today. But stranger things have happened. But the fact of the matter is that I just see that there's some better candidates than Joaquin Neiman or a Liv star. Plus, I don't think Liv's going to have a great year. We'll probably touch upon that later, but I don't think Liv's going to have a great year.
Patrick Cantlay, rounds 1 through 3 a year ago, he gained 1.25 strokes on the field per round. He was less than a stroke off of that in round 4. So for whatever reason, he got to Sunday and couldn't play anymore.
And, we talk about this, we'll call it relegation from the top 10 in the world. Patrick Cantlay, for as much of a star as he has been on the international team stage and the name we always are betting, it seems like every signature event, he's like, oh, Patrick's great at Muirfield Village. He's great at Heritage. He's great at Riviera. Patrick Cantlay hasn't been on this list since the first week of January list of 24, which is crazy. He's down in the 20s in the world ranking. Has he passed his prime, do you think, Pat? Because now he's entering into his mid-30s, and a lot of professional athletes get that 10-year window. And I know his early window was injury plagued, so maybe he didn't get as many reps there. But I guess what gives me hope about Patrick Cantlay is Phil Kenyon helping him with his putting, because that's always kind of been the thing that's held him back, not his ball striking. But I do worry about his seasonality.
Is Phil Kenyon a guy from Kenya named Phil whose last name people can't pronounce, or is that really his last name?
No, Phil Kenyon it's not his stage name. He's actually over there from England, and he's the guy that fixed Scottie Scheffler, and he's a wonderful human being. You got to imagine those guys like him and David Orr and Stephen Sweeney would be another one, or John Graham out there. All these putting coaches. Could you imagine being someone's putting coach? Like, the only thing you get to fix is the thing that seems most fixable. And imagine being Scottie Scheffler's putting coach. A lot of pressure on those guys. So I give them credit because they actually do help those guys improve.
I would just say, how about Rico Hoey hires this guy? Because if Rico Hoey could putt, he might be Scottie Scheffler.
I mean, Phil Kenyon might be running around with like double stud diamond earrings if he could help. If Phil Kenyon could help him putt. That's for sure.
That's a part of the big 200 facts that Hoey basically is Scottie Scheffler who can't chip or putt.
Yeah, I mean, somebody like a Phil Kenyon around him would really he could definitely be on that list later. We talk about, guys, 5 first-time winners. I mean, Rico just really has to have something fall in his lap from a putting standpoint, but the ball striking with him is impeccable. When I see him out there, he is one of those flushers. I know we did the draft the other night, and I was talking about Marco Penge and that noise those guys make an impact. And, I was remiss because I wasn't thinking about Hoey in that draft, but Rico would definitely be one of those guys that's an absolute flusher.
Rico was second to Scottie Scheffler last year in ball striking gained per round. So not Rory, not Tommy, not Bobby Mack, not Russell Henley or JJ Spawn. Rico Hoey was number 2. He just happened to lose a stroke per round on the greens.
Which, if you wonder what that means, is that he didn't even get in the top 100 of the FedEx Cup points, and he was that good a ball striker. That's how important putting is at the end of the day.
But putting is important to a point. Obviously, the more repeatable skill is going to be driving. There's a lot of variance when it comes to putting. It's just he's markedly bad at putting. He's like the worst guy on tour on the greens.
Yeah, he's not good. He's not good. But you know what? You jumped to Cantley, and I kind of was leading you down that road. I mean, how about the guys in front of him on the world ranking that are sitting right on the precipice of number 10, 9 in the world? Victor's there. Colin a year ago.
Colin's the one for me.
5, 4?
Colin's the one for me. That he was the worst putter of anyone inside the top 35 in terms of strokes gained per round. And after Florida last year, he just completely lost it. Was it just the heartbreak of him not getting over the hump and Henley chipping in to beat him at Bay Hill? Because that's when the season took a huge downturn for him. I just can't imagine he's down and out for his career. That he went through some struggles. We see this happen like with a lot of top-end golfers. He's a 2-time major winner. He's 28 years old. He was still the 3rd best iron player in the world. He's still number 1 on tour from 100 to 150 yards, that he's going to be able to stick it when he needs to. I'm confident going back all in on Morikawa.
Without talking about someone that might be new to the top 10 in the official world golf rankings, I'm 100% in support of that. If you're throwing at me, are we buying and selling on Colin or Cantley? I think Colin is the most obvious one. There's a lot of volatility to Victor. There's a lot of youth and volatility to Ludwig. I don't feel like there's a lot of volatility to Colin. Colin still last year, 20, 21 starts. The guy still has 13 top 25s, and his short game and his putting was atrocious last year. And he's still one of the top 5 iron players in the world. That will serve you very well because Colin still has the ranking to play a lot of hard golf courses. And if you could put it in play like he can, and you're on those harder tracks, he's definitely going to be in those top 20s in those signature events, which is going to keep pushing him up towards he gets a win somewhere in there. He's definitely going to be pushing inside the top 10 in the world.
I'm curious about the Scandinavian players because you mentioned Hovland and Ludwig is another one. They're still both inside the top 20 right now, but they both suffer from the same problems. They can't chip. They actively chip themselves out of tournaments.
You know what? You ever play simulator golf?
I do.
Right? You can't chip and putt on simulators, but man, you could strike the hell out of the ball, can't you? At the end of the day, all winter up there in Canada where you are or where I am, I don't get to practice my chipping and putting. I mean, I could practice my putting, but it's still on AstroTurf. It's not on real grass. I think that, and this is just enough to make them, these are world-class players, but they're not world-class when it comes to scoring from inside of 30 yards. And I think it's one of those things where I think with Ludwig, it might be a little bit of youth because he's been such a good ball striker. He's gotten by on that. And we've seen that a ton of times with guys that come up that develop quickly on the tour. And then with Hovland, I think sometimes it's just a little bit too much experimentation and, paralysis by analysis sort of thing. But quite honestly, with the way they grew up, they had to take 6 months of the year off.
I'm very familiar with how this works. And it takes me like 2 good months. I'm not amazing around the greens, but it is one of the strengths around my game that I have to actively go practice that for the first 6 weeks that I can get back out onto the range. So yeah, because I'm on the simulators all winter. I feel like the ball striking is a bit more dialed in, that I really have to focus on that part going forward. And a lot of this actually translates itself into par 5 scoring, pretty 1v1-ish. Like I'm trying to think about who the better around the green players are from Scandinavia. And it seems like maybe it's like Nikolai Højgaard does a pretty good job. He seems to be one of the better ones, although he still ends up in the negatives, but he pops up on this par 5 list. If you had to guess who the top 5 players are in the world, at least last year, in par 5 scoring average, who do you think, what names would pop up? I gave you Nikolai. He's number 3. Who would be the other names on that list? And do you think it's more short game? Do you think it's more power? Because I think it's sort of a blend of both that would lead itself to being great at par 5 scoring.
There's 2 things you need to be able to do. Number one, you have to be able to flight the ball with a high trajectory with a long club off of turf, which is a skill. For a long time, Justin Thomas was one of the best fairway wood players in the world. Everyone thinks back to Aaron Hills, the day that he shot 62 in that last fairway wood. That's kind of like a microcosm for what the guy is that I'm looking for on par 5s. the guy that can take a 5-wood, a 3-wood. I mean, they're even going to higher lofted clubs and using 7-woods because the players that can't get the ball off of turf with a very low lofted weapon, those are the ones that need to go to those 7-woods, et cetera, with like a 3-wood length shaft. So for me, I there's 2 skills I really need. I need guys that can pitch the ball from inside of 50 yards because you just don't always hit a green into. In fact, a lot of those greens, they kind of like shoot shots sideways that are coming in from 250 yards plus. They're meant to repel those shots. And then you have to chip or pitch from somewhere there. So I really need guys that are great at launching the ball high from over 240. And then I want pitchers of the golf ball. And that's why somebody like, a Xander is a great par 5 player, or Scottie's great at everything. So he's a bad example. But
we're trying to find the top 5 here. There's actually 6 because 2 of them are tied for 5th.
Okay.
Scottie's number 2, Nikolai's number 3, Xander is number 4. So you're right on the money so far.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. I didn't get number 1.
Well, there's also the one other essential component with this is putting.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's what makes Xander so good, is that, he's just so well-rounded. Not to say that Scottie isn't, but when Xander was playing his best golf and winning 2 major championships, all 4 major categories are, in the top 40 on tour, which is a very difficult thing to do when it comes to a strokes gained. Man.
Weirdly, Xander last year, it was the first year of his career he lost on the greens.
Yeah. And I mean, you just look at his resume on major championships and how many, whether it was Augusta or the US Open, which are 2 very different style of tests, that scoring from 50 yards and in was just his bread and butter. I'm racking my brain here for who I want in par 5 scoring.
Rory McIlroy tied for 5th.
Okay. Again, another guy who launches it from 250 into the moon.
The next 2 are going to be impossible to figure out. So Kurt Kitayama is tied with Rory
at 5th. Okay.
And number 1, a favorite on this show, and will be popping up later on in the first time winners category, is my main man, Pearson Coody, number 1 on tour.
Wow. Well,
hits it high and can putt and hits it a mile.
Yeah, he definitely hits it high and can putt. Yeah. And, over the course of the year, this is meant to be a preview. So a bit of a PSA, when something like par 5 scoring, or you get more into courses like a Torrey Pines, these are the guys that you should be looking at, the guys that hit par 5s and 2 that can really launch it off of turf, not the tee, just a lot of speed off the tee and the ability to hit a driver high. I mean, it's built to do that. And the guys match up, their swing dynamics with the equipment. But if you could do it off turf, then man, you are a next level player.
I wish we had better stats for that, because all we really have is apex height, but that's measuring the launch off the tee. Do you know who had the highest apex height of any player last year off the tee?
Well, it wasn't Cam Champ and it wasn't Chris Gotterup. The highest off the tee, man, the kid, Oberg, hits it high. Rory hits it high.
7th, 6th. You're trending up. It's not. It was shocking when I saw it. Put it that way.
Shocking. Then I'm not going to come up with shocking. I mean, I have 500 names in my head.
Ricky Fowler.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, Captain Jack Sparrow coming back. How about that? Huh? Oh, geez.
And then the other ones are like Thorbjornsen, Potgieter, Sam Burns, Keith Mitchell, like guys you would expect. And then it's Ricky Fowler and Frankie Sappin, 1 and 2.
Interesting. We could go on and on about comebacks and everything, and I don't think that Ricky falls in the comeback, but his 10-year window might be over, which is sad to say, because Ricky's one of the really good guys out there. Look you in the eye when you walk by him in a media center or on the golf course. Say hi, mention your name if he knows it. Just a really, really good guy.
Better chance of being a top 15 player in the world again, Ricky or Spieth?
Spieth.
For sure? Like with a bullet, Spieth?
Between those 2, yeah, I'm going to put my chips all in on Spieth for sure.
So
yeah, there's just the intangible there with Spieth for him to be able to get in the mix and then close a tournament, which was never really Ricky's forte. Remember the year? I can't remember the exact year. What was it, like 17 or 16? Might have been even earlier than that. That Ricky finished top 5 or top 4 in all 4 majors. He should have pushed through in one of those. He was
Yeah,
that talented.
but he was never really in contention of any of them. Like it's sort of the Matt Kuchar and even Rory effect for some of these majors where, oh, right, like the year that Rory came second to Scottie at Augusta, but he was never in the tournament.
I never thought of Ricky Fowler as a backdoor man, but I'll have to look at those numbers and see what comes up.
All right, people, it's that time of year again. The Mayo Cup is officially open. That's right, your yearly reminder that you could win life-changing money if you stop making coward picks and actually commit to greatness. Let's talk stakes, because the Mayo Cup, not messing around. $110,000 to first place. 110,000 actual, real dollars. And with your $250 entry, you're playing for a prize pool of $1.2 million. That's 7 figures of pure, delicious fantasy golf sweat. And this season, the Mayo Cup is fully available in the Fanball app. Week-to-week picks, leaderboard sweats, berating yourself for fading the guy who wins by 6. You can do it all right from your phone. So head to the Fanball app, search for the Mayo Cup, and get yourself entered. $1.2 million in prizes. $110,000 to the winner. Just $250 to play. This is the year. Unless you blow it again. But hey, you might not. Sign up now. The contest tees off January 15th. It's winter and it's cold. At least where I'm at. And I'm spending way more time indoors, aka I'm sleeping more. If you're like me, it's time to upgrade your sleep and switch to Helix. You'll never go back. I took the Helix sleep quiz. It matched me to the right mattress for how I actually sleep, not how some showroom goober thinks I sleep. And since it's been all restful nights, no tossing, no back pain, and my sleep tracking actually backs that up. My deep sleep numbers off the charts, good, way better than before. We've got more than just one Helix in our house now, too. Just threw one in the upcoming baby's room so I can get back to sleep quickly the moment that the baby goes down. Helix builds mattresses for different people, not a one-size-fits-all nonsense, because that wouldn't make any sense. There's free shipping in the United States and a 120-night sleep trial with a limited lifetime warranty. Go to helixsleep.com/mayo for 27% off, site-wide exclusive for listeners of the Pat Mayo Experience. That's helixsleep.com/mayo. Do it now! Other guys inside the top, I'd say 20 right now. So you got...
I got one for you. I got a...
Well, let's try to parse it this way, because you mentioned Thomas, he's injured. He's probably not going to do it. Rose vastly overachieved. I could see Sepp staying around. Noren's at number 12. That was a really hot season run overseas. We'll see how that translates over. I did bet him to win the PGA Championship at 175 to 1. In fact,
Ooh.
I've also bet Bobby Mack to win the PGA Championship at 110 to 1. Those numbers are gone. However, if you're in Canada, outside of Ontario, coolbet.com has put out a Pat Mayo boost. They will honor the 110 to 1 on Robert McIntyre under the PME exclusives tab. You can just hit that in the description and go get it up until the beginning of the Sony Open. So if you do feel like I have a hunch on Bobby Mack, which I do for Aronimick, then you can still bet him at 110 to 1. I think he's 70 to 1 everywhere else.
Have played that course many times. Very good course fit for Robert McIntyre's skill set.
So maybe like, well, we were talking a little bit about it on the draft show of like who sets up well, who doesn't. But for Aronimick, I'm just feeling like it's guys that keep the ball in play and are good with longer irons.
Absolutely. Yeah, the par threes there are definitely going to challenge. That time of year is going to be difficult to get it to be firm and fast. We're going to have a dry spring here in the Northeast, which generally doesn't happen. But long iron play will be a significant role there for sure.
So Morikawa would be one of my nominees to move up inside the top 10. The other one is another guy that I bet him at the Masters already at 110. I'll probably bet him at the PGA Championship. He's 21st in the world right now.
Oh, yeah.
Based on what you just said, he's already won a U.S. Open in the Northeast. So winning a PGA Championship in the Northeast with his long iron play, which is second best on tour to Scottie Scheffler, Matt Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely. I mean, the other night in the draft, Feinberg had me coming out of the booth because he took Fitzpatrick in front of me. And I think that there's one other guy that I was going to give you an A or B choice on, and we'll get to him in a second. But Matt Fitz working with Mark Blackburn and what they're doing technically in his golf swing. And you're talking about one of the most technical guys on tour, records every practice shot, every tournament shot. I love it. I mean, since the PGA at Quail Hollow, the guy went absolutely bonkers. right? He had a zillion top tens. He won the DP World Tour Championship, and he was just so consistent with his ball striking. He was very good at the Ryder Cup, which he had never been good at before. 31 years old in the prime of his career, and the type of guy that has that short game and scoring and closing ability that we like to see. So I'm I would definitely you and I are in lockstep on these two guys for sure. If you're asking me for the first two guys I would choose to pop into the top 10, Colin would be my first choice, Matt Fitz would be my second, and my third was going to be who I was going to question you on, would say, who do you think will have a bigger year? And that's Matty Fitz or everybody and their mothers talking about the fall and the late summer that Cam Young had.
I'm just not a Cam Young guy. So maybe it's a very clear Matt Fitzpatrick. I think he's a better player. But if this is truly the Cam Young, what we saw from Cam Young the final 2 months of the season through the Ryder Cup, if that's really the guy that we're getting, then he's probably a top 5 player in the world. I choose to believe that he's more like the guy that he always was, and he went through a really nice run. And he's going to have some really nice runs throughout the course of his career. But much like, he's sort of like fancy Chris Gotterup in my mind. Like, he does more well than Gotterup does. But when they hit their peak and they start putting well, obviously they're going to be good. They have that sort of skill set. But you can say that about like 10 other guys on this list. Like, if you told me that Michael Thorbjornsen had a better year than Cam Young, I wouldn't be stunned.
Ooh.
Because they're kind of the same guy too, aren't they? They're both bombers who hit their irons pretty well and can't really chip or putt, except for the weeks that they can.
I have a long personal history with the Young family. I've known Cam for a long time, and he's kind of leveled up at every echelon of golf, junior golf to high-ranking amateur golf, now to professional golf. What gives me a lot of I guess anticipation for what young Mr. Cameron can do this year is how much better he putted, because that was never his kind of, his resume for all the great success he had playing golf, right? He was always known as a bomber and a ball striker and just a really, really good closer. But the putter was never something that for 72 holes was something that you're like, oh, that kid can really putt. And how he has gotten better at putting last year makes me think that his game is starting to elevate. And, you're talking about somebody who's at 28 years old. I think that he's someone that I'm definitely going to pay attention to, but I'm putting Colin and Fitz ahead of him as far as top 10 in the world.
So thinking about putting, last year in the calendar year 2025, Cameron Young was 14th on the PGA Tour in strokes gained putting. He was 0.8 shots per round better on the greens than he had been at any other point of his career. That just reeks of regression to me, that he's not Sam Burns, unless he does this for like 5 more years. He's not Denny McCarthy. These are the guys that he's beating on the greens as of a 1-year sample. It's just, I think that we see putting swing so wildly year over year outside of about 10 guys that could it revert? Probably. Will it? Probably. Could he sustain this? Maybe. But I would bet again. I'd play the don't pass line on him just turning into a great putter overnight.
If he figured out how to be decent at putting once a month, his ball striking will put him in position to win in those events. And you're right. It probably will regress and he won't putt as consistently week in and week out. But his level of ball striking, as you just mentioned, the guy could, if everything clicks, be top 5 in the world. I think that's a little high, but 6 to 10 with peaking his putting alongside that ball striking and finding the right golf courses to play now that he knows the schedule very well and where he's comfortable. I definitely could see him being 8th or 9th in the world for sure.
He would have to keep the thing that impressed me the most about him and what really did turn his season around from his win on was you mentioned ball striking. Like, he's not that great of a ball striker. He's a great driver of the golf ball, but the iron play really hasn't been good at all. He was 214th in iron play last year, except when we got to the Wyndham and on, he started becoming an elite iron player. So my guess is he's actually somewhere in the middle there.
I think back to the Harmon Liverpool Open Championship, and through 3 rounds, Cam was leading the field in approach and off the tee play. And that was something that even as a junior golfer, that was characteristic of what he would always bring to the table. And if his putter got hot, it was like, good night. So I'm with you on the putter regression, but I think the ball striking will be there this year.
Okay. Like, is he as good as like he's not Victor Hovland when it comes to hitting irons? That's more the point that I'm trying to make here is that, and I do fundamentally feel that where he is an elite driver, he has that one skill. He doesn't need to be top 5 in the world on approach play. If he can be 20th in the world in approach play, that's going to lead to a lot of wins. It's just outside of these like last 5 tournaments, I just haven't seen enough of that to believe that it's going to sustain itself.
So I'm going to throw out my second PSA, right? Cam Young, long iron play is not his separation skill. It is for Victor, for sure. When we get on courses that really emphasize the ability to differentiate yourself from the field with long iron play, that's where you want to go heavy on Victor. And he's proven that over time. He's not that guy. But when it comes to the driver and wedge play and the ability to put the ball in play, like massively down there next to the green, those are the places, and that's how Cam separates. And when you're looking at fields and you listen to all this content that everyone that watches this kind of digests week in and week out, that's the way you have to start to think about this. You cannot put round pegs in square holes. Yes, it happens, Brian Campbell, I get it. But overall, if you want to bet the year, you want to go what is the separating skill for all of your favorite golfers to bet? Write that down on a slip of paper. And then when you hear Pat or myself or anyone on any of our channels, like talking about these specific golf courses and what is needed, that's when you need to go run to window with those people.
Because I'll for sure forget. So it's good that other people will write it down. Then maybe they can remind me when I say these things, because I'll forget it in 2 weeks and then not bet the guy I'm supposed to bet.
Well, I tell you what, I'm here all year, Pat, and this is just the beginning of the fun. What do you have next for me?
I got one more guy from way down. If we had to pick someone outside of the top 50 in the world rankings right now to be inside the top 15, let's say 20 by the end of the year, who would you pick? Right. Because I am going to go with Daniel Berger, who I don't know what happened to him after the Masters last year, but his game fell off a cliff. He was trending back up to being Daniel Berger again, and then he got the yips around the green. He was so bad around the greens, it was impossible to figure out. So over his past 100 rounds, he is losing 0.14 of a stroke around the greens. Whatever. That's not the end of the world. That's good tournament, bad tournament, good tournament, bad tournament. Over his past 24 rounds, so just the closer sample that we get when he started playing poorly. Actually, hell, let's go past 50 rounds. So past 100 rounds, 0.14 in the negative. Past 50 rounds, 0.5 per round in the negative. But he's like chipping and not hitting the green at this point.
So a lot of people ask me all the time, Keith, when you're out on site, what do you do? Like, what are you doing? Right. And then I have friends like Pat that are texting me and we're always having these conversations where we're talking about like, what the hell's happening with Daniel Berger? So last year at the Travelers, I see him tee off 10 and it's a practice round day. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go watch. Because I mean, this guy, great wedge player, hits that low cut, hits every fairway, just a tremendous talent. Florida State, love the kid, right? Everybody loves betting him. Stands up for the field, gets in fights with people over rules, has no problems with that. You know, you love him chugging beers and Ryder Cups, all of that. Everyone's got to be a fan of Daniel Berger if you love that style of golf. So I'm walking with him. I've never met Daniel before. I'm just walking with him and his caddy. We're on the back 9 there at Travelers at TPC River Highlands. We get on that par 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. And we're on the tee box, and I'm just standing there, and I go to grab a water out of the cooler, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Who are you, Keith Stewart?" And I was like, "Oh." And I was dressed like this, particularly that particular day. And he thought I was from the tour because I had a credential on. And he's like, "What do you do at the tour?" I said, I don't do anything with the tour. He said, "Oh, well, that's good." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "What do you do?" And I told him what I did. And he goes, he goes, "I wouldn't bet on me. I got issues." And I said, so he hits a bomb drive right down the middle of that hole. Doesn't, you got the railroad on the left, you got the pond on the right. And we're walking with him and his caddy, and his caddy's asking me all these questions. And Daniel's a quiet guy to begin with, but he's not saying much. And he's like, "That's really interesting how you look at all of this," or whatever. He goes, "So I'll second that." He goes, "I got issues." And I said, "Do you mind if I ask what those issues are?" And you just spelled them out on a spreadsheet, but that's exactly what he talked about. He goes, "I just can't figure this out right now." He goes, "I'm not sure what I have to do, but I played well enough early in the year. I can get through this season and I'll figure it out in the off season. And I'm going to come back." So I'm giving you hope, but at the end of the day, Pat, we all know hope's not a strategy. That's what Daniel Berger thinks of Daniel Berger.
He had an entire Christmas break to figure it all out, Keith. He's good. He's good.
I mean, he put up the out of office reply, and then he's out there chipping. And he's not in Sweden or Scandinavia, so he's got a chance.
See, just keep him in Florida. You can go back to Florida State, continue getting some chipping lessons, and he'll be good. Who is it who's the angle of attack guy? Is it Joe Mayo that's teaching everyone how to chip?
Oh, well, yes. He and the short game chef, Parker McLaughlin, they fight over angle of approach or angle of attack. And, Joe wants everybody to be steep. And then, McLaughlin wants everyone to kind of be shallow and then clip it and use bounce. I mean, it's just, here's the thing. Once again, golf at times is just one big argument. And at the end of the day, unless you're Scottie Scheffler, there's parts to pick apart.
With Berger, the one thing that gives me hope with him is that the ball striking it started to tail off towards the end of the year, but he still finished 9th for the year. So strokes game, ball striking as we define it. So when you go to betsportsgolf.com, get your membership at the rabbit hole, and you can dig into all of these stats, which makes it the most fun thing going, is that his driving is excellent. He's not long, but he is one of the most deadly accurate players on tour, and he's gaining 2 strokes per tournament with his irons. That puts him at number 9. The other names that are in this, it's Scheffler, then Rico Hoey, as mentioned, Morikawa, Spawn, Fleetwood, McIlroy, Kitayama, Hovland, Straka, Cantlay, and Daniel Berger.
I mean, the guy finished top 45 in FedEx Cup points. He's in the signature events. He's going to have his chances, Pat.
So if he can just revert back to the guy that, even if he was half the guy he used to be around the greens and on the greens, he'll be fine.
He would.
For example, it gives me more confidence that Berger will just flip a switch and figure it back out than Rico Hoey will learn how to do these things.
You're 100% correct there. And sometimes the trend's not your friend. For Rico to figure it out for the first time in his life is a lot harder than for Daniel Berger to get it back.
If we could teach someone how to chip and putt, Doug Gim would be a 6-time winner on tour.
Oh, Doug Gim. How about that approach round he had at JDC last year? Anyway, I'm sure you have something else for you. Talking about first-time winners, whatever else we're going to go through. And I have some fun for you at the end, by the way.
I am not prepped for you. All I've been prepped is that you have fun for me. I'm excited about this. I do think that because we do what we do, we like to talk about the Rico Hoeys and the first-time winners. We probably should dedicate some talk to Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood, who became the number 3 player in the world, and how their season outlooks are going. How long can Scottie keep this going for? Because anyone not named Tiger doesn't keep it going this long.
I've kind of had a love-hate relationship with Scottie Scheffler.
Because he's a hateable guy. So I get it.
Well, no, I don't mean that. I just mean kind of the success or whatever. Look behind me. That's the Tiger Slam. I'm a huge Tiger guy. And when people make Tiger comparisons early, it kind of bugs me a little bit because they just weren't there. They weren't watching. I mean, they just weren't maybe in golf content. But I worked at the club where he lived. I watched him practice. I mean, the guy's work ethic was unbelievable. It's just, there's a million stories that we can go through over the course of this year doing a show together and having some fun. But Scottie is the next stage of Scottie is that we need to see him to string some wins together. And what makes me believe that he has the tools with which to do it. He definitely has the ball striking skills to do it, but he learned the most valuable lesson from Tiger that led to that 142 straight cut streak is that when Scottie played with him in the final round of the Masters, right after COVID, and this is, or maybe it was the COVID Masters, right? And they play in the final round together, and they're both fighting for 20th place. And they get to the first hole, and Scottie tells this story very affectionately in the press room about how he's I get Tiger on the first tee. This is going to be cool. We're going to play Augusta on a Sunday, whatever. And he goes, this guy's locked in on the first tee. And he's neither one of us are winning today. Let's go out and let's play golf, and let's see who plays better today, that sort of thing. And he said, from the first green on, Tiger was completely locked in every single thing that he did. And he said that made a lasting impression on him. And he said from that moment forward, he goes, every time I worked, every time that I went out and played a round of golf, I was going to give that level of effort to the 1,000%. And when I heard Scottie said that, it was no longer man, he's taking my hero and he's learning lessons from him and he's putting them into play. I got to give this guy his due. And I think that Scottie is going to continue to do Scottie things for the next 2 or 3 years. And unlike Tiger, who I like, he made some errors in judgment. And I'm not talking about fire hydrants. I'm talking about the training regimens and things that we used to see him do, and his body fell apart accordingly. I don't see Scottie's body falling apart. So I think at the end of the day, will he get to double digits in majors? That's tough to do. There's 4 a year. But I think you're going to see for at least 2 or 3 more years a lot of great, if not just next world golf coming out of Scottie Scheffler.
So you have some good Tiger. You ever been to Perkins Restaurant?
I was much more of a Waffle House guy back in the day, and anyone that knows me that's watching this knows. But Perkins is there too.
What was the most amazing thing you saw Tiger do on a range?
Oh my God. He would hit golf shots that would defy, in my mind, like gravity and logic and physics. Golly, he could bend golf balls in ways that were just absolutely crazy. Okay. A story that people will be able to relate to. Remember the juggling commercial that came out with Nike when Tiger was like kind of broke through, and it's got like that white background. He's on the grass, and most people don't realize this, but he starts lefty, right? He starts lefty. He juggles it, puts it in his right hand, then he clocks it. But he's hitting it with a wedge, and anyone that's juggled a golf ball and can hit it out of midair knows it's easy to do with a wedge. So one day we were like, "Hey T, could you do that with a wood?" And he was like, "I don't know. I've never tried." Like, which was typical of him being like, he definitely tried. Like there wasn't anything he was going to do and show off that he hadn't done a million, like chip in 2005. But anyway, I digress. So he gets his driver out, the old 975D, and he takes the ball sitting on the ground and he chops down with the edge of the driver, and the ball rides the face and it pops up, hits the crown of the head twice. Boom, boom, hits the second one really high, loops it, and hits this monster drive that, because of the height and the way the face is oriented, is going to produce a huge hook. So it starts like 70 yards towards like the right edge of the range and like hooks like 70 yards across the range. And he hits it like 300, probably like 265 out of midair. And then he's like, "Yeah, it'll work." And he just looks at me. I just walk, you just walk away. Like when the mic's dropped, you don't want it to land on your feet. So you just like, that was a dumb question. I'll walk away. But I mean, Tiger was the best. T back in the day. People ask me all the time how good was Tiger at golf. I always say Tiger Woods is better at golf than I am at breathing, and breathing's pretty important.
Here's my Scottie Scheffler fact from the 200 things that you need to know. He has come top 5 in 36 of his past 59 events over the past 3 years. That is a 61% top 5 rate, which is higher than what? Shaq's field goal percentage in the NBA. Not free throw percentage, field goal percentage.
Shaquille lived there back in the day too. He was a great dude. But
how is Shaq at golf?
It's a difficult sport for someone that large. First of all, the grips on his clubs are like tennis racket grips. But when he would drive around in his golf cart, it was a standard golf cart. So he would drive around like Ace Ventura. His head would have to be out like the side because the roof of the golf cart was like right here for. Shaq was the best. He'd shake your hand. It's like you putting a newborn baby in your hand or my hand. Like that's how small your hand was compared to him. But just a legend of a great guy, Shaq, and would stop and talk to you. And he was always interested in golf, but he really couldn't hit a golf ball.
Everyone knows the size of Shaq's hand because when we were growing up, they had those KFC basketballs that had Shaq's hand on them with his handprint. And be like, "Oh, good Lord, they're 8 times the size of my hand."
Yeah, I mean, his foot's like the size of my elbow to here. It's like a 22 triple E or something like. I mean, like that. Like that's. I'm 6'2". I mean, that's a pretty big forearm. Like the guy he was so massive. Just "What's up, Curry?" He's the best. This is so much fun.
No chance Rory repeats what he did last year, right?
Do you mean specifically like 3 wins at different places, or that he repeats with a major championship?
Either or. Like 3 wins at 3 different places on tour is one thing. Like winning the Abu Dhabi Invitational and then picking up a Zurich Classic is one thing. But like 3 big Players, Pebble, and the Masters is a pretty big year.
I think that Rory still does Rory things, but I heard a lot of like Justin Rose candor out of him at the end of the year, which is I'm going to cycle up to the big things. And I think in between, we're going to get a lot of, business Rory. And I'm not going through the motions because he's probably the most talented player on tour. And I know that Scottie's there, but like Rory,
So
uber talented.
I've always had this opinion too, because we would always talk, because this used to be my way to sandwich Siwoo Kim into anything, that if you just said that every player is playing their A+ game on any certain day, we all kind of always agreed that Rory was still the best player. It's just he so rarely has his A+ game, where Scheffler's constantly putting out his A- game at all times. And his A- game is still better than most people's A+ game. But if Rory was playing his best and Scottie was playing his best, you do think that Rory's the better player.
100%. And throughout Rory's career, I think the only guy who could touch him would have been DJ. If they had all of their superpowers, from what I've seen live out there, and like, I think that, like, if you go back 10 years when those two guys were both in their prime, or maybe now that's more like 12 years or whatever, those two guys had a different gear like you couldn't believe. Like that fall DJ had in 2020, when, you know, the the guy could have shot whatever it was at TPC Boston that day. He could have shot like 56, like that he's, shot 20 under at Augusta because it was soft, like DJ and Rory for sure. Right now, currently, I'm not sure still Rory. I mean, all credit to Rory. He's in his mid-30s and he still has that extra gear. And it's just a little bit. Rory's a roller coaster and Scottie's not. You
Do
coined
we
it
have
well.
do we have to start thinking about extended primes even in golf, where we see it in every other sport, that mid-30s might just be guys entering their prime at this point?
I actually kind of think of it the other way, that like I don't think of extended primes, and I think if you want to extend the Champions Tour, you got to lower the age to 45. I think that we kind of tend to look at outliers all the time, like a Rory who's still very good at that age, or like a Justin Rose. But a lot of these guys that have been, our heroes on tour, and guys we've won like big bets with and everything, that are coming up in their early 40s, they're just not going to make it to 50. And that tour could use an influx of talent and some youth isn't the right word because they're not young, but like some new star power. And I think something like that kind of is a way to kind of answer that question. It's not really answering that question, but that's kind of the way I see the paradigm.
But we're just seeing so many of these guys in their mid-30s just peaking at the right time. Like, how old's, I guess Ben Griffin's 29, but JJ
29.
Spawn is 35. Tommy Russell Henley, Tommy, Rory. These guys are all in their mid-30s now. And they're just
I think that
seasons.
has a lot to do with like 3D mapping, and these guys understand how to train their bodies. They're not doing it with, Camel Lights and Bud Lights, like they were back in the 90s.
Should be doing that.
Tiger Tiger, they basically created a shift. And now you're looking at out on tour, you just don't see guys act like that. And they're going to have longer careers as a result. And as long as they're not training with Navy SEALs or anything like that, or jumping out of planes like Tiger, then they're going to be okay.
Let's try to think about the A+ guys. So Rory and Scottie are probably the end. I still think, just because I've seen the heater so many times, I would still probably put Siwoo right around the top 5. That if everyone had their A+ game on that day, Siwoo would compete with these guys. Because when you see him go unconscious, there's a reason he's won like 7 times on tour. It happens once every 18 months.
I mean, the guy who can really go deep and like do it for like multiple rounds in a row, and we saw it a year ago this week, Hideki.
Yeah.
Hideki can go nuclear. And I mean, he was 35 under last year. I mean, I was on Colin last year, and how do you feel bad when the guy shoots 32 under for the week? I don't know, because probably the best Japanese player of all time shoots 35 under. Hideki can go nuclear. Remember the year he won not this year that he won the Hero, but the first time he won the Hero out there at Bahamas, and the guy shoots 61, and he's taking one hand off the club. How about that final round of Riviera when he won a couple of years ago, when he shot 63 on the final day, and his last like 5 approach shots were all inside like 8 feet. I mean, like that to me is like that A+ game you're talking about.
So if we just think about A+ game, so I sorted this to a minimum of, actually I'll up that. I'll say 36 rounds over the past 5 years. I'm using the tool in the rabbit hole right now, betspertsgolf.com, if you want to check this out. Strokes gained 5 or more total strokes in a round. That's big. That's big time. You're having good rounds against the field. Jon Rahm is actually the best player over the past 5 years. He gains 5 or more strokes in a round 13% of the time. Scottie, Rory, Bryson. There's your top 4. Then it's Cam Smith, Morikawa, Max Grazerman, Sam Burns, Ludwig, Xander, and Rico Hoey.
Okay, so the top of that list, is like saying, who's the best par 70 scorers? It's super skewed towards hard courses, major championships and such. Like it's easy to it's easier to gain 5 strokes on the field when you shoot 67 at a major championship and the stroke average for the day is 73 and a half.
How about this? How about I get rid of courses that are very difficult and difficult? Would that be better?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it won't be a bullshit putting contest, right, John Rahm?
John Rahm's still your leader at 12%. Then it's Grazerman, Bryson, Cam Smith, Cantlay, Scheffler, Hoey, Cam Young, Sam Burns, Schauffele, Fleetwood, and Potgieter.
All right. Well, I think that's a great segue because I don't know how long you want to do this, but does Max Grazerman win this year? He likes to play more than 30 events. He didn't take Liv backed up the truck. He didn't take the cash. Can Max Grazerman, can Mad Max step out of 50 Shades of Gray, and can he close on a Sunday?
My wallet would do better if he could. I bet this. He has come second place 5 times when I have bet him to win a tournament.
My worst beat of the year last year was I had Kirk and Grazerman at Rocket, and I lost.
I had Grazerman that week too. It's hard.
I had 2 of 3, and I lost. Oh my God. Anyway.
But yeah, he's even coming off he almost jarred out from the middle of the fairway in Japan to force a playoff with Xander in a tournament I thought he was going to win that week too.
So if you come up with 3 guys for their first time win this year on tour, would you put them on that list? Or do you have 3 others?
Let's work through it because I have a collection of guys. I wrote down Hoey and Thorbjornsen. I think that Thorbjornsen is very clearly the number one answer to this. He just seems like a cut above for where we project him to be, the skill level that he came in with. I mean, he just led the PGA Tour in greens and regulation, and he barely got his tour card. Once he learns, it's not that he's a bad putter, and this is a part of the breakdown that I released in that article about Thorbjornsen, who's now, let's see, what is he at? Thorbjornsen is 68th in the world rankings. He's one of 4 golfers last season with an average driving distance of over 304 yards and hitting over 60% of his fairways. It's him, Pearson Coody, Cam Champ, and Keith Mitchell. And he's 73.6 greens in regulation rate, was number 1 out of all players. But he was 140th in putting and 194th in strokes gained around the green. And when I went to that spike kind of putting list and spike results list, where you see how often do they gain X amount of strokes against the field, a percentage of the time. There's no spike putting with him ever. Like he gained 1 or more strokes putting on the field in a particular round 30% of the time. Like the biggest person that I could always remember with this was JB Holmes. JB Holmes was a horrendous putter, but his spike putting percentage of like over 3 or more or 4 or more strokes in a round would be like 12%. Either he read every putt perfectly or he couldn't putt. He kind of needs to fall more into that zone rather than be the guy that just is right around average or, losing 0.7 per round or gaining 0.1 per round. He needs to start having those big rounds where he gains 3.5 strokes putting on a field because he does that once out of 4 rounds with the rest of his game and he wins a tournament.
Yeah, there's so many times that our minds are skewed by the fact that guys come up and have like initial success, like the Ludwig, and they just win all of a sudden. But, I think of somebody like a Davis Thompson or what like Luke Clanton's going through is that, they come up, they have some success because they're raw talents. And I will put Thor in this kind of category. You give him a season like you just had under his belt, and he starts to learn the venues, and he starts to learn his travel routines, and he starts to get more and more comfortable. You put him in TGL in front of a kind of a weird audience, and he has to have a personality, and then he excels there. All of that adds to the confidence factor. I think that Thor should be very high on that list. I think while his odds are still somewhat high, probably high mid-tier as we go into the early part of the season, and you're looking at places like a Torrey, I think Thor makes a lot of sense.
Thor, Pearson, Coody, and Hoey were my 1, 2, 3 of first-time winners this year.
So, a lot of people are going to talk about like Harry Hall or Sam Stevens or something like that. 3 names I'm going to give you.
Look, these guys are better than the guys that you just named. Those guys have better careers. They're real professionals. They've been grinding, but those guys are grinders. These guys are potential superstars.
There's no doubt. And I'll start with a superstar for my 3, and that'd be Johnny Kiefer. And I am definitely one of those people that stays away from early and high numbers on guys. I love to see them play a little bit, but man, oh man, I was impressed with him at RSM. He finished 7th. I know I drafted him the other night. The guy at every level has performed. And there's so many times that the guys that kind of learn at whatever level they're at, they learn to win, and then they go to the next level and they learn to win, and they do it quickly because he did it. Kiefer did it America's really quick, like Brennan did. He did it then at the Korn Ferry Tour. He dominated there, and then all of a sudden now he's on tour, and a couple tour events that have been mixed in throughout his career. But then he finished 7th at RSM at a week where there was some pretty good talent there, and you had to score and strike your golf ball fairly well to keep up. Kiefer has impressed me, and above all else, where Thor doesn't, Kiefer has the putter.
Kiefer broke the Korn Ferry scoring average record last year, 67.95. He had 2 wins and 13 top 15 finishes on that tour last year. He made 3 swing season starts. As you mentioned, a 7th at RSM. He also put in a 12th in those 3 starts. He seems ready to make this leap.
I also think when you ask me this question, I also try to think about guys that we could pull out of the 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, 120s in regular events like a Valspar or a Cognizant or something like that. And one of the guys that really impressed me last year, he did not win, and he made the Tour Championship, which is very, very difficult to do. Jacob Bridgman. Who is Jacob Bridgman? But the guy had 4 top 5s last year, made it to the Tour Championship. That could be a guy who's not going to get any sort of book attention, and you put him on the right golf course. Again, there's going to be an underlying theme here with what I think that when you have the putter like that in the short game like he does, and you can hang around and you start to contend, I think he could walk through that door. So for me, Bridgman is going to be one of those guys that's going to continually get big numbers that you're going to see me bet a bunch this year again.
Jacob Bridgman was I think he's about my 4th highest drafted player in the Underdog Best Ball season-long leagues. I've been taking him in the 4th round, mainly because I think he's in every signature event. He's in most of the majors, and where he came 2nd at Cognizant last year, I think he's going to play Cognizant. So I'm really crossing my fingers that he plays at PGA National this time around, where he almost won a year ago.
Cog, Valspar, Truist, and JDC, all top 5s. And then he made the Tour Championship. The guy was consistent all year. He's good. And again, another one of those guys, when I'm out on tour, he puts the time and the effort and the work in. And then my third name, I'm going to go with a guy who just, I think, needs to win at some point. And I'm not very sentimental. Those that
Denny?
know me, I'm not. What's that?
Is it Denny?
It's Denny.
Oh, Denny's not going to win, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
So,
here's the thing.
So these are your 3 first-time winners. You brought up Grazerman. I didn't put him on. But you're picking Denny over Grazerman?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I just think that at some point, so Denny last year did one thing that I've been waiting for him to do. 2 years ago, he was 111th on tour in approach. And then last year, he was 62nd. So if you're going to be the best putter in the world, you also need to be a decent approach player. So you give yourself more birdie chances. So that trend in my mind gives me the opportunity that on the right golf course, JDC or Cognizant or something like that, we get a good Denny week where it's not like imperative that the driver has to be the number 1 key of the week. And I think he squeezes one in.
I do want to talk about a few formerly big names and whether they'll return. I did want to ask you about Jordan Shaper, though, who is up to, I believe, 60th in the world rankings right now. I know you're out full-time on the PGA Tour, but I just thought what he did over the course of like the past 5 weeks, getting himself up from like 196 in the world to 60th with back-to-back wins between South Africa and Mauritius, where he won in a playoff both times, became the first guy to do that on the DP World Tour since Nick Faldo. He's the highest ranked South African player in the world right now, and I'm pretty sure no one knows who he is.
Yeah, I mean, everybody followed the Ryan Gerard story to get into the Masters, but then he ends up winning, and it kind of goes to my point earlier talking about the tour and how the DP World Tour is going to have these stars that are, again, people say, oh, it's not a meritocracy, the cuts and all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, we can complain about some of those things, but these guys like him and Brennan and Kiefer, these guys are doing like some really, really amazing things, and you need to start to pay attention to them, and they're young stars in the making. So, I mean, what he's done over the last 6 months is crazy. It's like Ben Griffin not being in the Masters and winning 3 times since, being relatively good on the Ryder Cup, and, getting married and on the cover of Vanity Fair.
Since the middle of October, Shaper went T5, T6, T23, T20, T2, win-win to end the year. It's amazing.
I mean, if you are T25 in any event, basically something just didn't click, but the ball striking was there, and you're just like, You're just there. And you are in what we would call you're dealing. You
Now,
know,
in fairness, those were the two playoff events in the DP World Tour where he was 23rd and 20th. So that was against everyone. He wasn't playing everyone in delicious Mauritius, I'll tell you that.
yeah, but he and of course he gets to 62. What'd you say? 62 in the world?
60th in the world.
60th in the world. So those two events gave him a huge bump in official world golf rankings. But apples to apples, all you can do is go against the field that you're at, whether it's PGA Tour Americas or it's the Black Desert Championship, and then you try and win. That's all you can do against the field you're at. And if you keep doing that at the level you're at, then you will suddenly be on this show and we'll be talking about you. A la Jordan.
So washed or not, he is the main name here. Jordan Spieth. Is this who Jordan Spieth is for the rest of his career?
Whew, boy. I've thought a lot about this. I'm not a big Spiethian guy, but he definitely helps the PGA Tour. He is super popular out there. He's definitely the second most popular player out there behind Tiger, and Tiger doesn't exist anymore. So, Jordan, Rory, Scottie's very popular, but he doesn't really incite a riot. Jordan gets people going. And it's interesting to me what a great driver of the golf ball he's become and what a better ball striker he is now that his, even through the bad wrist, but that the wrist is healed and kind of his magic beans have gone away. The guy was 21 and he had 3 majors in his bag already. Or whatever it was. I mean, it's crazy. I think Jordan, based upon what I've seen with the driver and the ball striking, is going to figure it out. And he's going to become a top 20 player in the world again. And he's going to give us, he'll give us one good Sunday run in an event that we care about this year.
I forgot to throw Neil Shipley onto the list of guys who could be first-time winners here. He's a good player. But Tony Finau, is this 93rd in the world Tony Finau? Is that Tony Finau? It would make sense. It makes sense, right? Because it's not like he was some valued prospect coming up. Dude was on the big break. And then all of a sudden, he's just really good for 6, 7, 8 years. Did he just kind of hit his peak and now he's on the downside?
I think so. I also think that his kids are older and he travels with his family. And Tony, okay, so if we were ranking guys on a scale of 1 to 10 that people love, Tony Finau would have been like an 11 on that 1 to 10 scale until all of that bad press came out about him. And since then, the guy's kind of tanked. I think sometimes talking about JJ and imposter syndrome, Tony was reading the tea leaves. And I think he needs to get past all of that. And he needs to be able to concentrate on playing good golf. The guy's obviously uber talented. And I still think he has 1 or 2 good seasons left in him, but it's hard to do this how hard it is to keep your card right now for 7 or 8 years, how good you have to be. We pretty much know everyone's name that's in the top 70, which tells you right there that they're constantly on leaderboards. And if you fall off the slightest bit or you get hurt in such a way, JT, top 10 in the world, poor guy has to have back surgery. We just don't know. Jordan with his wrist, Tony, I don't know. I'm not at that list of comeback people. I would put Max Homa in a better place than Tony.
So Max Homa is the next guy on the list whose numbers really did flip over his final 6 starts. He started driving the ball. He was a disaster off the tee, and now he's not. The irons have come back. We know that he's a good putter. Maybe he never is the 6-win guy again, but he should be someone who's competing for signature events.
And I think a lot of it comes down to confidence, coaching, and headspace. And, for whatever reason, he was struggling. He walked away from Blackburn. Blackburn knows what he's doing. Mark Blackburn is an excellent teacher, and he's a good high-level coach. He's now back with Blackburn as of midsummer, and you saw the turn in the ball striking. And, Max has climbed this hill before, and he understands that, the comeback is far better than the setback. So I like Max in that place. I like him more than Tony.
Okay. Sahith Theegala.
Ooh.
Was he just not as good as maybe he seemed? Or is this just a year blip and he'll get it back together? He's a young guy.
He was injured. He's young. For all those factors I kept saying about Tony, being a little bit older and some of the other guys in that 10-year, 8-year window. We talked about Cantley being around for a long time. I think that Sahith still has some of his better playing days ahead of him. He really struggled with injuries last year. He was one. I know you're gonna laugh at me for this, but I'll open myself up to it. But he was one of the best ball strikers in screenplay for the TGL, meaning that he was hitting tons of greens in regulation, hitting tons of fairways, which doesn't always happen. So under the gun, he had to hit a fairway. The guy was hitting a fairway. He was the 2020 College Player of the Year. This kid's got super talent. Whether he was at Pepperdine or now out here on tour, he's contended before. He really struggled with injuries. I think we could still look. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Sahith Theegala is in the top 70 next year. He easily earns his card, and if not a signature player.
Okay. Two more.
Two more.
Day.
All right.
Jason Day.
Ooh, Jason Day. I think a really representative context on Jason Day right now is that you took 10 people that were all trying to beat each other in a fantasy pool over the course of the season to earn money, and we each get 5 picks, and of those 50 picks, nobody picked Jason Day, and Jason Day won he won a year and a half ago, and last year he had a lot of top 20s, and he's still a good putter, still a good short game guy. Hasn't really had any injury bugs in a long time, and people just aren't looking Jason Day's way. That would be concerning to me. So some of these other guys I'd be a little more focused on. I think J-Day is still a top 100 player in the world, but I don't see him being top 20 in the world. No.
He hasn't won since the AT&T Byron Nelson in 2023. Previous to that, he hadn't won since 2018. It's been he lingers and you see him pop up, but I feel like he's one of those players that you see on the first page of the leaderboard day 2 of a major, and then you just never really figure out where he ended up. So he might have come like 60th place or ended up missing a cut. But in your mind, he was lingering in that tournament where he wasn't actually doing that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was 23. Yeah, I thought it was 24. So, yeah, that's a long time ago. He's still consistent. Still a great long iron player, great short game player. So he's going to make cuts. He'll be top 100 in the world. But I think, he's certainly not going to return to number 1 in the world anytime soon. I just don't see it. And, if he wears the wrong sweatpants out there on Pebble, he could be blown away. We'll never hear from him again.
That's true. And maybe you should get rid of the parachute pants. Who knows? Hopefully he's making bank off that. But
I wonder if your last guy is who I'm thinking of, because I wrote down a name and I wondered if you'd bring him up, but shoot.
It's a guy who didn't have a top 10 on tour last year.
But did he play in the Nedbank?
I don't think he played in the Nedbank. He played 2 Australian events and did come top 10 in both of those to end the year. It's Adam Scott.
Ooh, Adam Scott. So I think at this point with Adam Scott, he's just not going to play enough. So when he does, he's going to play very well because he's that talented of a player, but where he doesn't have the reps week in and week out like of a lot of other players. And he said this before out on tour. He's like, hey, I'm really happy with my position and leadership on the tour, and I'm going to play like 18 times a year. And that's what I want to do. And he really wants to hit 100 majors in a row. And he's at what now, 97 or whatever the number, 96. So like those are the things he's focused on. So as long as he's qualified for those majors, there's just too many guys that want to grind against them. So I think he just kind of stays put where he is. And we still appreciate Adam Scott for the beauty of his swing, and that'll be that. But I think his better days are behind him. Top 20 in the world for him. I don't know. I just don't think the volume's there and the reps will be there with which to be somebody that when he really matches a golf course like Riv or something like that, and you're looking at one of these young guns that we talked about that really match the golf course, I might take the bigger number and the other player with less experience.
One guy. So I thought this was just as an aside here before we get to the guy that you wanted to bring up. I mentioned the 5 or more strokes in a single round for players. And it was like all the elite guys. That makes the most sense. If we just shrink that to 4 or more per round, you get a few different names thrown in there. Some of the same ones, like Thorbjornsen ends up inside the top 10 on that list with Hoey and Ludwig, Rory, Thomas, Scheffler, Xander, Rahm, Scottie, like all these guys. Grazerman pops up continuously across this board. And the other one that I thought was really interesting was Matt McCarty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Former winner. He won he doesn't get to play the Shriners anymore, or did he win it? He won
he won the first Black Desert right after he came off Corn Ferry. Yeah. He played good in a couple majors last year too. Wasn't he great at Augusta?
He was, yeah. I mean, anytime you can get a lefty in the mix, you got to go with him.
Yeah, definitely a good player. I mean, I've seen him strike the ball out there. Very impressed. And he goes about his business. Some of those guys, you can tell they're not really setting their routine yet, and they're trying to figure it all out. But he's a pro's pro. You
Yeah,
know,
he had a real nice. He had a real nice run here. He was 20th at the Players, 16th at the Valspar, 14th at the Masters, and 15th at the CJ Cup. That was kind of his year.
yeah, I mean, again, nothing but good things to say there. I think he will continue to ascend for sure.
Give me the guy that you wanted to talk about, though. If you thought that I was going to bring him up, you bring him up.
He's popular. I mean, but right now he's ranked 222nd in the world, but he finished 15th at the Nedbank in his first tournament back after more surgery, and that's Willie Z.
I don't know what to make of him, man. I root for Will Zalatoris. I like Will Zalatoris.
Love him.
But it's twofold. I think this was Sky who brought this up to me when we were talking through whether or not to take him in fantasy, is that at the Nedbank, his irons were actually quite good. But so much of his ability to get the ball out there, being such a slight individual, was using so much torque, which in turn caused him to have massive back problems. Can he reach the same level that he was at without having a swing that destroys himself? I don't know if he can do that.
Well, he has the X factor that when he gets in the mix, he's not afraid. But the unknown is massive in that, can he adjust his swing to his new body type? And we saw some success with that and a bunch of struggles in between the two surgeries. But there's a guy there that if he starts to get accustomed to his new swing, you got to remember Berger, he adjusted his swing greatly too. He doesn't down cock it as much now and in transition and everything. So certainly Willie Z's not going to have as much side bend at impact. He's not going to have as much kind of like that like underneath back, like torqued up position in his follow through. So I don't know. It was just he's a big popular name. Everybody always talks about the yellow boxes on Wikipedia. I didn't know if he'd come up when we talk about comebacks. And I mean, there's a guy that's over 200th in the world. And when he's on point, definitely somebody that is dangerous.
Well, you can still bet him 35-1 to win the Masters if you want to.
Yeah, doesn't seem like that number's been updated.
No. But the books are terrified of him at majors because he has such a good major championship track record. Cam Young would also be into that mix too. That's why I worry. It's funny that he ended up winning at Wyndham. Is that Cam Young always struck me as a better hard course player than easy course player.
Totally.
But then he gets his win at Wyndham, so who knows? Maybe just
totally.
Good.
Then again, Scottie shot 31 under and boat raced the field at the worst golf course on the PGA Tour. So whereas you think of Scottie at hard golf courses having such an edge, and it wasn't like you won on the last hole there at TPC Craig Ranch. I get it. Yeah.
This is a PGA Tour preview, but I did have 2 Liv questions, and you can answer pretty quickly on this. One, Why didn't Liv try to sign Hao Tong Lee?
I mean, we have a lot of whys when it comes to Liv. They've had a really difficult offseason. Many people, top to bottom, all over the podcast circuit, have broken all of that down. I don't have answers for that. So a lot of times, they're fixated on, the 2011 or 2008 version of Anthony Kim, and where they've got a guy like Hao Tong Lee he was great in the Golf Channel games. We don't know anything about him, and he had a personality. He seems like the type of guy that globally could really sell your sport. I have no answers there. That is a ship without a rudder.
Like if it was me and I was running Liv, and my whole goal is to try to get this influence worldwide, taking China's best player seems to make the most sense. I know that they tried to cut Hideki a big deal, but I would have tried to cut him a bigger deal to corner the Japanese market. Like they got great success. Not getting Scott and Day, I think, hurt them for the Australian one. They got Cam Smith. If they could have got one of those guys along with Leishman, I think that really would have solidified that for them. They got a ton of South Africa, but then all these younger South African players came along, and most of the guys that they got from South Africa were completely washed. And ditto with all of the European guys that they took. They were just all washed. That's why they ended up going to Liv, like Poulter, Keimer. Stenson got relegated from Liv. I think he's playing on the DP World Tour. The biggest mistake they made, honestly, was not just buying the DP World Tour.
They have the funds to do it, Pat. That's for sure. But Liv did not have a great offseason. We don't need to go at length about that. We've been talking for a while. Let's move on.
Okay, so we're out on Liv. That's okay. You had stuff for me. I want to hear what this is. I always like when, and this is going to be a part of the show that we're doing, along with head-to-heads and breaking down the courses, that you get to be the co-host here too. You can throw it back to me. I'm excited for this.
Well, I want to kind of do a fun segment in the show. A lot of people have reached out to me. They've heard through the rumor mill that you and I were going to join up and do a show this year. And they've asked me all sorts of questions. And, how'd you get to know Pat and all of this? And I said, well, we've gotten to know each other through the internet. We met up in Montreal. We spoke there a couple of years ago at the President's Cup. And you and I have kind of hit it off. But I think that people, myself, first and foremost, selfishly, I'd love to learn just a little bit more about you. Now, of course, this is a golf, driven conversation that you and I have on a weekly basis, but I love some rapid fire Q&A. And I think it'd be fun that people that have followed you for 13, 14 years, 15 years, how long have you been out here, basically the tip of the spear of this industry, leading all of us and mentoring all of us?
How
many years?
I've been doing the show. I've been doing the show for 16 years.
16 years, right? And, I've only been around for 4 years. Yes, I'm with the tour and everything. And you and I have struck a very nice friendship, but I want to learn more about you. So I'm going to hit you with a little rapid fire when you'll let me. And I hope you're game for it.
Let's hear it.
All right. First question. This year, we talked about these two guys. Who do you want, Sahith or Max Homa?
Max Homa.
I agree with you there. Okay. Number 2, favorite name that you get to say, in your content for golf?
That is an easy one, and I'm at the studio, so I could do it. Usually when I do it, I'm at home, and I don't want to wake my kids up, but it's definitely James.
If you threw it back to me, I was going to say Victor Dubuisson or anything French, because I love when the French rolls off your tongue.
Oh, we got a bunch. We got Victor Dubuisson. Although James Hahn, I don't think plays on tour. Neither does John. He's gone. We don't hear much from him anymore. See, woo! Kim is still probably my favorite.
That's a good one too. All right, number 3, last person to text you.
My wife. Oh, apparently the rims. I hit a pothole, so we had to bring in the car for new brakes, and now we need new rims. So there's $5,000 down the tube. So I need to hit some winners here, Keith.
All right, favorite non-major event on tour.
Heritage.
Oh man, we got to get you down to Hilton Head. That is a fun week. That's a trouble week right there.
Oh,
all right, will
really?
Cam Young win a major this year?
No.
Do you believe in New Year's resolutions? Yes or no?
No. Birthday resolutions, not New Year's resolutions.
Okay. Bigger fan of Scottie or Rory?
Rory.
Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Do you believe Brooks will play on the PGA Tour this year?
Yes.
And I think you're right. Brooks is going to play this year. And I'll also say this with one caveat. I think it's going to happen way sooner than people think.
I tend to agree with you, especially after I did my interview with Michael Kim and I asked him, I was like, do you care? He's like, no. He's like, bring Brooks back. It's good for the tour.
Well, here's the thing. Those are my questions. Thanks for playing Rapid Fire with me, Pat. Take us away.
I think you should prepare this segment every week for the show. This is great.
Oh, I'm ready to roll, my friend. And it's Sony in just a couple of days. It's been a pleasure to do this preview with you.
I appreciate you coming on. I hope that people will get a lot out of it, because the conversation that you and I are going to have both today and on a weekly basis is going to be so much different. Almost like how when I talk to Tambo, it's not like talking to anyone else. When I talk to Jeff, it's not like anyone else. The hardest part for me in the golf schedule has always been finding another person that I can talk about a same tournament with, the same sport with, but have a different conversation with. And I think that's something that you and I can do most definitely throughout the course of the season, just as people saw today. So please subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience. Go over and check out all of Keith's work at Read the Line. You can subscribe to their YouTube channel as well. And Keith has a big presence on Instagram, always doing shorts. He's going to be at TGL every single week, checking that out, as well as being inside the rope. So you'll join us every Tuesday evening / Wednesday morning for Keith and I breaking down the tournament of that week, starting with the Sony Open. Please smash the like, leave your comments, tell Keith what a great job he did, because I think he did a great job. I'm Pat Mayo. Golf is starting soon. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!